Okay, Chapter 5, Trouble with a Capital T. My mom is called into the principal's office just as she's dropping off Charlie on her way to work. Remember, Charlie comes to school later than Marcus, so the mom brings him on her way to work. Before she steps in, she calls her boss. She ends up having to use a sick day. Stefan's parents rush to the school soon after and storm into the office. Stefan's dad paces around angrily while I sit in a chair and stare out the window behind Principal Jenkins. Stefan's mom hasn't stopped applying an ice pack to her son's jaw. "You okay, baby?" she says over and over again. "You okay?" Stefan's dad walks over to the window. I know he's staring at me, trying to get my attention. Our principal is on the phone talking to someone, but it's hard to know who it is. He looks over at me. My knuckle hurts a little. I can feel it pulsating. I didn't know punching someone could hurt so much. I've never punched anyone before. "Okay," our principal finally says. "Thank you." He hangs up and a door opens. My mom walks in. She looks at me and her face sinks. She squints like she does when she's really worried about something. I know this expression well. "Please have a seat, Miss Vega." "Thank you," she says, and takes the chair next to me. Stephen's dad continues to pace. "Please have a seat, Mr. Hobart." "I'm fine standing, David. Thank you." Principal Jenkins seems a little irked at being called by his first name, but he doesn't say anything. He continues. "Okay, let's talk about the incident between these two." "I'll talk about it," Stephen's mom says, interrupting. "That brute of a boy assaulted my son. He broke his jaw. We are demanding the severest possible punishment from the school. Once we take Stephen to the hospital, we'll see how much the medical damages will cost." She glares at my mom. Clearly, that boy doesn't have any positive male role models in his life. Just look at my son. Just look at him. My mom doesn't say anything. I see her picking at her cuticles. She looks at Principal Jenkins, who offers her a quiet nod. "Well, what do you have to say for yourself, young man?" Stephen's father says, pointing at me. I don't say anything. I stare at Principal Jenkins. "Answer me!" The principal jumps in. "Hold on there, Mr. Hobart. These are my students. I'll be leading this discussion." "You'd better," Stephen's dad says. "Have a seat, Jim," our principal says as he stands up and moves around his desk. He's tall and wide, and he has a crew cut. Like me, only he has gray hair. He sits on the edge of his desk and folds his arms. "Okay, let's talk about this," he says. Stephen begins by telling his side of the story. He says I've been taking money from little kids and hiding their phones from them and collecting for storage. He says I make kids give me money when I catch them throwing garbage on the floor and that I shove kids into lockers. He says I walk around intimidating everyone at school. Then he says that he saw me picking on a 6th grader today and decided to intervene. According to him, I pushed him and then punched him in the face when he told me to leave the kid alone. Principal Jenkins asks about the kid. Stephen says he can't remember his name. "It was all a blur, sir." Stephen's mom kept stroking her son's hair the entire time, while his dad shook his head in disbelief. My mom didn't interrupt at all. Finally, Principal Jenkins turns to me. "All right, Marcus, let's hear your side." I don't say anything. I just look out the window behind our principal's desk. "Marcus?" I look at Principal Jenkins. He stays focused on me. Even as I look away, my mom still doesn't say anything. "Marcus, we have a zero-tolerance policy for bullying at this school. Stefan is saying a whole lot of stuff here that troubles me. And the fact that he's injured isn't helping your cause. If you don't answer, I'm going to assume this is how the events transpired. Is what Stephen said true?" I shake my head. "No?" he asks. "No," I say. "He's lying. Look at my son." "Mrs. Hobart, please. Your son spoke. Now it's Marcus's turn." Stephen's mom lets out a huff and sits back in her seat. I make eye contact with Principal Jenkins again. "Go ahead, Marcus." I don't know, man. He picks on kids." "Liar," Mrs. Hobart says. "You're the one. Look at how big you are." "That doesn't make him a bully," my mom said suddenly, interrupting Mrs. Hobart. Everyone looks at her. It doesn't, she said. He takes care of his brother every day after school. He gets good grades. He's never been called into the office. Well, ask your perfect son if he's taking money from kids, Mrs. Stevens' mom scoffs. My mom looks at me. Are you taking money from kids? I nod. See, Mrs. Hobart says. But, I say, I'm not taking it. They're paying me. Our principal stands up from his desk and crosses his arms. Paying you? For what? I list all of my businesses. When Stephen's mom says I'm lying again, I hand Principal Jenkins my spiral, with the tabs of all my businesses and the dates I collected money, plus the person I collected money from. He takes a while to look through it. Stephen's dad gets up and tries to peek at the book, but our principal closes the binder and puts it on his desk. Why are you collecting this money? Cookie Monster cash, I reply. Marcus, my mom says, and I see her eyes getting all puffy. No, baby, no. Wait, this kid created a business related to school regulations. That's pretty clever, Stefan's dad says, nodding. Jim, he hurt our boy. Mrs. Hobart clearly isn't done yelling. He broke his jaw. His jaw's not broken, Maureen, Stefan's dad replies. All right, everybody calm down, Principal Jenkins interrupts. My mom hasn't changed the worried, quiet look on her face since she walked in. Marcus, why did you hit Stefan? Because he's a bully, Stefan's mom interjects again. The principal shoots her a look, but she keeps jawing for justice. Something better be done, she says, or the school board is going to hear about it. Thank you for the reminder, Mrs. Hobart, the principal says. Marcus, he said the R word, I whisper. What's the R word? The R word. He called my brother and this other kid the R word, so I punched him. Principal Jenkins looks at Stephen. Is that true? No. Our principal keeps asking questions and finally finds out who the other kid in the situation is. He has no choice but to call in Danny to get the story straight. I was right next to the plaintiff when the incident occurred, Danny says, standing next to me. The plaintiff meaning Mr. Hobart? Says Principal Jenkins. I was standing right next to the defendant, Danny corrects, when the incident occurred. The plaintiff did indeed use a derogatory word to speak about the defendant's brother and myself. This isn't a trial, Mr. Pena, our principal says. You don't need to speak like that. My apologies, Your Honor. Sir. Thank you, Principal Jenkins says. You can go back to class. Danny leaves and our principal stands up again. Okay, he says. This is what's going to happen. Marcus, you are suspended until further notice. We will look at the details of this incident and consider all punishments, including expulsion. Stephen's mom gives a weird standing ovation. Finally, some justice. And Mr. Hobart, the principal says to Stephen, it sounds like you've been harassing younger students at this school. You will serve detention and community service for 1 week. We do not tolerate hateful language. You've got to be kidding me. This is not the end of this, Mrs. Hobart warns. Not by a long shot. She storms out of the office with Stephen and his dad. We get up to leave, but Principal Jenkins stops us. Hang on a second, he says. He closes the door and says he wants to talk to us about Charlie. I worry, he says, that Marcus's need to protect his brother may cause him to jeopardize his own schooling. What do you mean, Mr. Jenkins? My mom asks. Look, I know your son isn't a bully, Mrs. Vega. This kid helps out around the school, sets up for assemblies, and never complains. I do want you to stop making money off my rules, though. Do you understand? He points to my binder. That's got to be the first time in my 30-plus years. Unbelievable, he says, shaking his head. Anyway, no more money-making schemes, okay? I nod. I know Marcus is a good kid, Miss Vega, he says to my mom. I know it can't be easy raising 2 boys. I don't see how that's relevant, my mom says, raising an eyebrow. Point taken, Mr. Jenkins rubs the back of his head. Look, spring break is next week. I suggest taking some time to regroup and rethink some of Charlie's educational goals. What do you mean? The principal goes to his desk and pulls out a brochure. He hands it to my mom. She looks at it, and when she turns it over, I read the front. The Academy for Exceptional Students. It is a highly regarded school for individuals with special needs. They have academies all over the country. There isn't one anywhere near here, my mom says, flipping through the brochure. There's one in D.C. That's about 2.5 hours away. What are you saying? My mom asks. Are you kicking my brother out of school? I finally blurt out. Because of me? No, he says. Then he turns to my mom. Look, I just thought you should see that there are options out there for Charlie that would allow both children to thrive individually. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins, my mom says, handing the brochure back. But my sons are fine here. We're fine. My mom collects her bag and takes my hands. Miss Vega, Principal Jenkins says, insisting she take the brochure. Just look at it, please. It could be a good fit for your family. You know, Mr. Jenkins, you fought really hard to make a place for Charlie at this school. I did, he says, and now I'm looking out for Marcus. I can take care of myself, I say. You're not a grown man, Marcus. You're a kid, and I don't want you to get into any more trouble trying to be your brother's savior. I don't like what Principal Jenkins is saying, but I can tell from his eyes that he believes he's doing the right thing. You know what? I'm taking my other son home as well, my mom says. I hope you're happy. Principal Jenkins shakes his head and tries to say something, but my mom has already walked off. I follow her outside to get Charlie. What are you doing here? Charlie asks as my mom collects his things at the classroom. What are you doing? We're going home, sweetie, she replies. It's school time, he says. I'm in school now. I know, buddy, but we're going home to spend some time together. We leave and Charlie continues to ask where we're going. He doesn't like when things change suddenly. We hop into my mom's car and the school disappears in the distance. My brother looks around, still wondering why he's going home. My mom focuses on the road and doesn't say anything. I look at my hands. My right hand is swollen and the cold has started to crack the skin. All right, guys, I hope you guys got all that.